Hello everyone, welcome to my class Zoology. In this class I am going to teach you Zoology intermediate and degree level. In this session I would like to explain you animal tissue which present in all the animal tissue. So animal tissue, we know that meaning of tissue. Tissue means a group of similar structure, function cells we call tissue. A group of similar structure and functional cells we call tissue. In plants or animals there are different kind of tissues are there, but especially in this class I am going to explaining you about the connective tissue. In this class I am going to explain about connective tissue which present in animal body. The connective tissue in animal body, the role of connective tissue and where the connective tissue is present in animal body we have to know, and at the same time we have to know how many types of connective tissues are there in animal body, how many types of connective tissues are there, and what are the functions of connective tissues and where the connective tissues are present. So in this class I am going to explain that. Loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. These are the two types of connective tissue is present in animal bodies. So coming to here, loose connective tissue, in this name only there, in this tissue, the arrangement of cells are in free mode. And coming to the dense connective tissue, the arrangement of cells in this tissue, the cells are very closer. So that's why we call it dense connective tissue. And coming to the loose connective tissue, the arrangement of cells are in very free. Example for the loose connective tissue is blood and the dense connective tissue is bone. Okay. So in this session I am going to explain you about the loose connective tissue, blood. So now we have to know, and I will explain it clearly about the blood. So I already told you blood is an example for connective tissue. Which type of connective tissue? Blood is example for loose connective tissue. Now tell me, what is the definition for blood? What we can call blood? So I wrote here on the board, blood is LCT. It means blood is in LCT means L for liquid, connective, C for connective, T for tissue. So blood is nothing but means liquid like connective tissue. Blood is liquid like connective tissue. Blood in the form of fluid, so it seems like liquid. So it connects all over the body parts from top to bottom, and blood is a tissue. Why should I call it is a tissue? Means blood having the different kind of cells. So that's why I call it is a tissue. So the definition of blood is liquid like connective tissue. Why means blood seems in liquid form and blood connect all over the body parts and blood having the different kind of cells in it. Okay, so that's why I called it blood is a liquid like connective tissue. Now we would like to know the components of blood. What kind of components are present in blood and what are that we have to know clearly, right? In the components of blood, the first component of blood is plasma. The second component of blood is serum. And the third component of blood is blood cells. So there are three main components are there in blood. The first one is plasma, the second one is serum, the third one is blood cells. Now we have to know clearly what is plasma and what is serum and what are the blood cells. So in this class I will explain it clearly. Don't skip the video. I will explain what is plasma and what are the components are present in plasma. What is plasma and what are the components are present in plasma I will explain to you, and serum and as well as blood cells too. So what are the types of blood cells are there and what is its function. So I'll explain it clearly. Don't skip the video. Okay. Now plasma. One type of component which is present in blood is called plasma. Plasma is a colorless fluid. We can found plasma in our daily life, and if you can cut or any damage happen to your body, after the secretion of blood, one yellow color or some seems to be like a colorless, of course, it's a colorless fluid you can see after the secretion of blood from wound. So that colorless fluid we call plasma. So it seems to be not a liquid, it seems to be not a solid. We can consider as plasma is a fourth stage of materials. Fourth stage of matters. So we can consider plasma as a fourth stage of matters. Now we know that there are three types of matters are there: solid, liquid and gas. But coming to the plasma, it's not a liquid and it's not a solid. It seems to be a very semi-solid or semi-liquid. It seems to be like a gel-like structure. So plasma is a gel-like structure which can appear after the secretion of the blood. So we can found in our daily life from damages of our body or after the secretion of blood from wound. So plasma is a colorless fluid. The present it is a fourth stage of materials. Now we have to know what kind of things are present in plasma, what kind of components also present in plasma. Now we have to see what kind of components are present in plasma. So plasma, I already told you, it is a colorless fluid. It seems to be like a semi-solid and a semi-liquid gel. So proteins, plasma having three main components in it. First one is proteins and organic compounds, and some other inorganic compounds are present in plasma. So coming to the first one, proteins, a very important thing. These proteins, we have to know what are the proteins are present in plasma and what is the functions of the proteins, whatever present in plasma. Plasma having three main types of proteins. One is albumin, globulin and fibrinogens. For the MSET and NEET oriented students, if you attend the NEET exam or MSET exam, you can face such type of questions like the plasma proteins, albumin and globulin and fibrinogens are what kind of source for it is. So what is the main source of proteins which are present in plasma, he can ask like that. So then you have to say the answer is liver. So for the albumin and the fibrinogen, these main proteins will come from liver. Liver secrete albumins and fibrinogens. Coming to the globulin, so these are the proteins are very important for our immune system. And we can also call as immunoglobulins. So these globulins will come from the endoplasmic reticulum, EPR, and also the help of Golgi complex. So albumins and globulins and fibrinogens. So among these three proteins, albumins and fibrinogens will extract from, will secretion from the liver. But coming to the globulins, so globulins will come from the help of endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi complex too. Now we have to know what is the function of albumin and what is the function of globulin and what is the function of fibrinogens clearly, right? Right, now we have to see the function of albumins which are present in plasma. So albumin is a protein. The main function of albumin is regulating of osmotic pressure of blood. Regulating osmotic pressure of the blood. Main function of albumin is to regulate the osmotic pressure of the blood. And coming to the fibrinogens, fibrinogen functions, everybody knows it. You can also say it easily. The fibrinogens, the main function is involve blood clotting. Blood clotting. Fibrinogens are involved in clottation of blood. Albumins, the function is regulating the osmotic pressure of blood, and the fibrinogen function is blood clotting. Coming to the globulin, so these globulins are participating immune system. Which system? Immune system. So the three proteins are there in plasma. Now you can see these three proteins are very crucial proteins, and also like that I had already told you globulins are present to protect the immune system, and as well as the globulin also, type of globulins also helps to circulation of oxygen and carbon dioxide too. So albumins regulate the osmotic pressure of the blood, and the fibrinogens are involved in clottation of blood. Coming to the globulins, if it is an immunoglobulin, it present in immune system, and if it is in a globin, it also helps to circulation of oxygen and carbon dioxide transport. So these are the proteins which are present in plasma. So plasma components, proteins, organic compounds and inorganic compounds, and already told you the proteins which are present in plasma: albumin, globulin and fibrinogen. Now coming to the organic compounds, what kind of organic compounds are present in plasma? Means glucose, glucagon, such a type of organic compounds are present in plasma. So some other organic compounds or inorganic compounds like zinc plus Mg plus 2 and iron 2 Fe plus 2, such a kind of inorganic compounds are present in plasma like zinc, magnesium, iron and phosphorus. So such type of inorganic compounds is present in plasma. So the components of plasma is proteins, organic compounds like glucose, glucagon, and other type of compounds means zinc, magnesium, and coming to the special one, iron, Fe plus 2. So these are the things which are present in plasma. Serum, the second part in blood, and already told you the first part is protein, second one is serum. So serum, it's nothing but means it have color, and already told you the plasma is a colorless fluid, but coming to the serum is a color fluid. From serum means how the serum will form means when we extract that blood cells, and when we extract the proteins which are clotting proteins, especially the fibrinogens, like the removal, after the removal of fibrinogen and after the removal of blood cells, that material we call the serum. So from the blood, after the removal of blood cells and after the removal of blood clotting proteins like fibrinogens, the part is called serum. Okay, no? The serum is the clear liquid part of the blood that remains the blood cells after they remove the blood cells and the clothing materials. So it seems like a color. So most of the cases nowadays we can identify the pathogenic factors from the serum only. So what kind of diseases that patient is suffering from, like that. So we can use as a laboratory material serum. Okay, serum is a color fluid, and that means whatever they removed from the blood, like blood cells and fibrinogen factors, that is we call the serum. The components of blood, I already told you the proteins of plasma and serum, and coming to the blood cells. So there are different kind of blood cells are there, mainly red blood cells, and the next one is WBC. I am not calling it is a white blood cells. Why? I will explain it. The third one is platelets. So three main types of cells are present in blood cells. One is red blood cells and another one is WBC. Clear it? I am explaining it is WBC, not white blood cells. I am not saying white blood cells. Why? I will explain it later. So platelets. So these three types of blood cells are present in blood. So now we would like to explain red blood cells. What are the red blood cells and what is the red blood cells of origin place, and after the 120 days where it will go. So we have to discuss it clearly about the red blood cells. So blood cells, the first one is red blood cells. Cell means each and every cell should have nucleus, right? Each and every cell should have nucleus, but in these red blood cells the nucleus is absent. Nucleus is absent. The speciality of red blood cells is absent of nucleus. Then what is the shape of nucleus? So what is the shape of red blood cells? The red blood shape is dumbbell shape. The red blood cells shape is dumbbell shape, not a round shape. Then you have to know it clearly. The shape of RBC, the shape of red blood cell is in dumbbell shape or double concave shape. So this dumbbell shape and the nucleus is absent. So when we discussed a cell, that should nucleus is present, but coming to the red blood cells, nucleus is absent. So these red blood cells formed by a protein. So this outermost layer, this is called as a protein layer. Okay, ma? Protein layer, but nucleus is absent. The shape of RBC is dumbbell shape. To travel in blood vessels, this is a very helpful shape, and this is very helps to move easily and completely through the blood cells. That's why the red blood cell shape is in dumbbell shape. The outermost part of this layer we call it a protein layer. Okay, these red blood cells, origin of red blood cells, that we call erythropoiesis. The origin of red blood cells we called erythropoiesis. Nothing but means the production of or the produce of red blood cells that we called erythropoiesis. Coming to the erythropoiesis, the formation of blood or production of blood. So there is a neat bit, and there is our MCQ question is there. So about the erythropoiesis, you know, the formation of red blood cells means where the red blood cells will come. It means we have a 3 stages in our life. In our life cycle, we have a 3 stages. From these 3 stages, red blood cells will come from different places. Right? Then I will explain it. What are the 3 different stages for the poison of production of red blood cells? So in our life, so there are different kind of stages are there. So the production of RBC in different stages. So when we are in mother's womb, RBC will produce from placenta. RBC will produce from placenta. After birth, after we came out from the mother's womb, while we are growing up until the adult age, the RBC production will start from spleen. So when we are in mother's womb, the RBC production is in placenta, and after the birth, when we came out from our mother's womb, spleen will perform the production of RBC. And after we will become an adult, then we have strong bones. After that, from our bone marrow, RBC will produce. So most of the students know it only one thing means the production of RBC means everybody told like that bone marrow. So bone marrow is the right one. But when we are in adult stage, the RBC will come from bone marrow. But before that adult stage, when we are in child age, the production of RBC, spleen will do that function. And when we are in mother's womb, placenta will take place to produce the RBC. So here one important note is there, whatever the birthplace of RBC. So in different stages, placenta is one type of stage to produce RBC, and spleen is one type of stage to produce RBC, and bone marrow too. So we have three stages are there, but whatever that production of RBC, but after 120 days, after 120 days, nearly 4 months, the red blood cells will go and die in spleen. Whatever the birthplace it is, it takes place in placenta, and after 120 days, the red blood cells will go and die in spleen. And the spleen, even the production of RBC from spleen only when we are in child age, but also after 120 days, that RBC will go and die in spleen. After the bone marrow too, after the adult stage, from the production of bone marrow too, we can see spleen is a graveyard of RBC. So whatever the birthplace of RBC, that after 120 days, RBC will go and discrete itself in spleen only. So spleen is a graveyard of RBC. So right, after 120 days, what will happen? So I will explain it clearly. Mention it and write it notes. So production of placenta, production of spleen, and from the bone marrow, whatever it may be, after 120 days, spleen is the only one place to take the RBC. Now RBC, red blood cells, from the starting onwards we are discussing it is a red blood cells, means these cells are in red color. Why the red bloods are in red color and what is the factor behind on it? It means one pigment is there in red blood cells that we call hemoglobin. What it is? Hemoglobin. We can see the two terms are there in hemoglobin, heme, and another one is globin. Heme is a color pigment. Heme is a color pigment which produce red color. Globin is a protein. Globin is a protein part. It means a protein is there in red blood cells which produce red color. So that color we call heme. Okay? Red blood cells are is in red color. Why means it had a separate color pigment. That separate color pigment we call as a hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin have two terms. One is heme and another one is globin. Heme means a color pigment which produce red color. Okay? And other one is globin, means it is a protein which gives red color to the cells. That's why the red blood cells are there. So hemoglobin give the red color to the cells. That's why it is in red color. So what is the function of hemoglobin? So everybody knows it. The main function of hemoglobin means it helps to transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So I already told you when discussing about the plasma, all the time the plasma having different kind of proteins like a globin, right? So that is a globin. So this globin which having the color pigment heme that we call hemoglobin, it helps to give the red color to the cells and as well as it also helps to the transportation of gases. One is oxygen and carbon dioxide. So now we have to know about white blood cells. Only for your understanding, I am mentioning it is a white blood cells, but here I wrote only WBC. But coming to the here, I mentioned clearly red blood cells. Why? Because these cells color is red. But coming to the here, I mentioned only WBC. For your kind attention to I am explaining it is a white blood cells. Actually, the WBC cells is colorless. There is a no particular color it is. Why? Because like RBC lo laga, there is a no particular color pigment in WBC. WBC means colorless cells. But coming to the red blood cells, it had a separate color for it red. Why? Because it having that color pigment hemoglobin. Coming to the WBC, there is a no color pigment in that cells. That's why we call it is a white blood cells. Actually, white is a milk color. So, white means milk color. So, there is a no kind of color is there in WBC. That's why I mentioned only the WBC like it, not a white blood cells, right? So, this WBC is having the nucleus. So, WBC cells having nucleus in these cells. But coming to the red blood cells, there is no nucleus in that cells, and the RBC having no nucleus, at the same time WBC having the nucleus. So the based on this nucleus and the based on the granules which are present in the WBC, these are two types. Now I will explain what are the types of WBC that based on presence of granules. So WBC, white blood cells. So I already told you about the red blood cells that is in color red. And coming to the WBC, white blood cells, there is no particular color pigment in the cells. That's why they are colorless. But usually we call it is a WBC, white blood cells. So in these cells, nucleus is present, and the nucleus having 2 to 3 or some of the times many lobes. Lobe means like this kind of structure we call lobe. So this is a nucleus. So some of the times this nucleus having only one lobe, or some of the times 2 or 3 many lobes. So these white blood cells having nucleus, and this nucleus having different kind of lobes. So based on these granule-like structure which are present in cytoplasm. So if you consider it is a cell wall and this is a nucleus, nucleus having 2 to 3 lobes. In this between the cytoplasm, between this cell wall and the nucleus, this entire part is called cytoplasm. In this cytoplasm, granule-like structures are appear, right? So these granules, based on granules, the white blood cells is two types: granulocytes and agranulocytes, right? So granules, how the granules will form is these are the enzymatic materials. So which are helpful to identify the and which are helpful to fight between the antigens when the foreign pathogenic factors will enter into the human body, and the white blood cells work as a policemen. We know that. So the policemen will work like a WBC. So these are the granules, enzyme materials. These are all so which are present in the cytoplasm. So based on the granules, white blood cells is two types: granulocytes and one is agranulocytes. Granules means like this kind of structure. Cyte means, in Latin language, cyte means cell. Cyte means a cell. So in the cells, the granules are present that we call granulocytes. At the same time, A means, A we usually used for absent. So agranulocytes, granules are absent, that's why we call agranulocytes. So these granulocytes are mainly three types. One is basophil, I will write here. One is basophil, acidophils or acidophils, eosinophils, whatever it may be, neutrophils. So granulocytes are three types. Based on absorption of color. Based on absorption of color when we are adding base solution, neutral solution and acidic solution. So granulocytes are three types. These granulocytes mainly three types. One is basophils, acidophils or eosinophils, whatever it may be, are acidophils. And next one, neutrophils. So these type of the granulocytes, by the classification, how means, when I added base solution to the granulocytes. When I added base solution to these granulocytes, with that base solution, some of the cells may having color, may attract the color. So that kind of cells we call basophils. Phil means like. So when I add a base solution, so some of the granulocytes show the color reaction with that kind of cells we call basophils. Next, when I add acidic solution to the granulocytes, in that cells may have that acidic reaction with that cells we call acidophils. Phil means like. So when I add acid solution to the granulocytes, when I add acid solution to the granulocytes, some of the granulocytes may attract that acid and form the color. So that kind of cells we call acidophils. So some of the times when I add a neutral solution, means when I add acid or when I add base, whenever when I apply base, when I apply acid, and both the times some of the cells they won't react with the color. So that kind of cells we call neutrophils. I will explain it clearly once again. Listen carefully. Basophils. So these are the cells may show the reaction with the base solution and give the clear color. And coming to the acidophils, when I add acid solution to the cells, so these cells attract that acids and show the color. Some of the times, few cells in these granulocytes, they won't react with base, they won't react with acids. That kind of cells we call neutrophils. Neutrophils means no acid range, no base range. That kind of cells, neutrophils. Right? Coming to the agranulocytes, then you have to clearly observe here. Agranulocytes means WBC, having nucleus, one or two lobes, or one lobe. The nucleus is present in agranulocytes also, but in the cytoplasm there is no enzymatic granules. So that's why we call it is agranulocytes. So agranulocytes are also two types. One is monocytes. And another one is lymphocytes. Granulocytes also two types. One is monocytes and another one is lymphocytes. So monocytes are the largest blood cells. Monocytes are the largest blood cells. The lymphocytes are the smallest blood cells. Some of the exams he may ask what are the smallest blood cells. Entire RBC and WBC, the monocytes are the largest and the lymphocytes are the smallest blood cells. So these agranulocytes, coming to especially the lymphocytes and the monocytes, are perform immune system functions. So lymphocytes is also known as the policemen of the blood, policemen of the human body. Right? Clearly you have to understand it. The lymphocytes which helps to increase the immune system. Right? So that's why white blood cells also we call policemen of the human body. So this is the WBC. WBC is a colorless but having that nucleus. But based on this reaction of acid, base and neutrous, agranulocytes and granulocytes are present. Granulocytes are basophils, acidophils or eosinophils, neutrophils. Agranulocytes, granules are absent, but these are the two types, monocytes and the lymphocytes. Monocytes are the largest blood cells, and the lymphocytes are smallest blood cells. So the entire WBC will produce from bone marrow. Bone marrow. In birds, especially you have to remember for the NEET students or MSET students. So in human beings, we can get WBC from the bone marrow. In birds, there is no bone marrow in birds. You can observe clearly. So birds have no bone marrow. The birds does not have a bone marrow. That's why they fly easily. But when the bone marrow is absent, then how the blood cells or white blood cells will be produced? How the WBC will produce from the birds means bursa of Fabris. Bursa of Fabris is the only one option to produce the WBC in birds. Okay, so this is the WBC. So last part of the blood is platelets. Platelets, the very teeny microscopic structures which present in the blood and circulate the entire the body. While it is circulating throughout the body, when it gets some recognized, when it recognizes some of the parts of the blood vessels may be damaged, on the time it will go and then fulfill the damaged part of the blood vessels. So these platelets are the cells that circulate within the blood and bind together when they recognize the damaged blood vessels. Normal range of platelets is 1,50,000 and to 4,50,000. So here the platelets are the circulating materials, and these circulate and bind together while it is circulating in the blood. If may found the damaged blood vessels, on the time it will go and repair the part. So that's why these platelets is also known as thrombocytes. Right? Thrombocytes. Platelets is also known as thrombocytes. These thrombocytes are help to clotting the blood. So what is the main function of platelets means clotting the blood formation. And that platelets is also known as thrombocytes. The minimum range of platelets 1,50,000 to 4,50,000. In some of the people, you can get that term, a patient losing platelets and getting down below 1,50,000. That stage we called thrombocytopenia. Thrombocytopenia means the ratio of blood platelets below the 1,50,000, that we called thrombocytopenia. And most of the things, some of the people they don't know, maybe increase the number of 4,50,000 the platelets. The number of platelets may increase more than 4,50,000. That stage we called thrombocytosis. Thrombocytosis, but it may lead to cancer. Okay, the gastrointestinal cancers and lung cancer, it may lead to lung cancers to some of the times if we increase the platelets number. So the entire process is only one thing, formation of blood clotting. It helps to regulate by vitamin K, right? Vitamin K regulate that platelets function. So most of the doctors and our parents will recommend to us to drink milk. So in that milk there is a vitamin K, and calcium also is there to prevent that thrombocytopenia, to prevent the thrombocytosis. So this is the blood platelets. So the blood It's a connective tissue. Blood is a connective tissue which is in the form of liquid which connect all over the body part from top to bottom. The blood having different kind of cells in it is. So hence we call this is a tissue. Which type of tissue it is? Loose connective tissue. The arrangement of cells in the blood is very in free form. That's why we call it as a loose connective tissue. Loose connective tissue is the best example is blood. So in this blood, we have to know what are the components of blood. So the three major components of the blood is, one is plasma and another one is serum and the third one is blood cells. So what is plasma? Plasma is a colorless fluid which is a fourth stage of matter. After the secretion of blood we can found a colorless fluid plasma. So in this plasma there are proteins are there, organic components are there and inorganic components are there. So what are the proteins? Proteins albumin, globulin, thrombin and fibrinogens like. So these are the proteins present in plasma and organic compounds like glucose, glucagon and the inorganic compounds like zinc, magnesium and a special one is ferrous. And coming to the serum, protein and blood cells removed part, it is a color part. It's mostly to detect this antigen. And the third one is blood cells. Blood cells having three main types, RBC, WBC and the platelets. RBC having red color, but because it's present hemoglobin entities, its function is transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide and giving the color to the red blood cells. WBC are the white blood cells. Actually there is no color for it. Usually we call it as a white blood cells. WBC is two types. The based on granules are present or absent. One is granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granules are present in cytoplasm. Granulocytes. Granulocytes are absent in WBC called agranulocytes. Granulocytes are mainly three types: basophils, acidophils, and neutrophils. So, agranulocytes are two types: monocytes and lymphocytes. So these are the complete picture of blood. Right? Thank you so much.